My Govanun Melanine and well mess indeed. I am Arachia Galadirthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome back to Divide and Conquer as we continue on with the overviews of version 2.1/2.2, as the difference between them is only bug fixes. And today we play, of course, as Rivendell, Imladris, the last homely house, the remnants of the Noldoreen in Middle-earth. And here we are. So, size of your domain and your initial army. As you can see, it's small. You only have the city of Imladris itself. Apologies. And in terms of an army, this is pretty much it. Elladan and Elrohir, who are outside of the city, don't have any troops with them other than their bodyguards. So the army in the city itself is the only army you get. A couple of units of Quendi, bow and sword, a couple of units of Tulkas' Faithful, and some Dunedain Wardens. And that's it. That's your entire army. So, your leader and your capital are fairly obvious. Of course, your capital city is Imladris. And your leader is Lawmaster Elrond. There he is. Your faction heir does take the name Prince, as you'll note. So, Prince is your faction heir and Lawmaster is your leader. Which doesn't really work, because Prince would become a king. But it's what we've done here. Of course, Elmaster Elrond is currently actually entitled to be the High King of the Noldoreen in exile in Middle-earth. With the death of Gil-galad, it would have passed to him. But he didn't take that title, and that is why he is not called High King. He is instead called Lawmaster. In terms of bodyguards, you kind of have unique bodyguards because only the family of Elrond have these, but they are the Noldoreen Guard, and we'll come to them in the second half of the video. There you go, all three of them get them. No, none of them are mounted, I'm afraid. Both of the twins and Elrond have lost their mounted bodyguards. Indeed, your general, your faction, well, in most factions now have dismounted generals. Only a few nations do, but of course there is a submod that adds mounted generals back if you do really want them. But the Noldoreen Guard are the bodyguard of these three, and they are an archer, and then they're one of the most uber units in the game. They're incredibly powerful. The standard bodyguard is also very powerful, but they don't have the extra oomph that the Noldoreen have. So, Rebel expansion then, well, you can only go west, as you can see. Cameth Bryn is a ripe little cherry for the picking, because it's a castle, and it's a relatively large-sized castle. You should be able to wipe away that garrison with ease. Of course, you can also head south, press through the old lands of Hollin, and then down into Eregion itself for Ost in Ethil. Now, unfortunately, I haven't synced this build with the latest one, but in next week's episode, you will get to see the new custom Ost in Ethil battle model. At the moment, it's still a placeholder because I haven't synced this build yet with the latest build. But that doesn't matter from Imladris' gameplay. Just note that Ost in Ethil has a custom battle map now. So, you can only go west or south, and then you're bumping into your neighbours. Of course, you border the Misty Mountains, and they will present problems for you throughout the game, and you do indeed start a war with them and Angmar. You're allied to the Dunedain, who are further to your west, around obviously the province of the Weather Hills, the town of Ostsul, the fort of Amunsul, and down to Tir Thuin. And Fenris Druinin is their capital, Fenris Druinin. The Misty Mountains capital is Goblin Town, so you do actually start relatively close to the head of the snake, if you will. But beyond that, actually, you can go to war with Dunland, and you'll absolutely laugh Dunland off. They won't have a hope against you. And you can go to war with Angmar. You might put up a bit more of a fight. But really, if Angmar are dealing with Ered Luin, they won't be dealing with you. So you can quite easily take those. Do note that as Imladris, I've heard people say that Imladris is hard, and it always just makes me chuckle. Your nation and your armies are so powerful that you can take on anyone you want, and you will win. It's that simple. The only way to make this campaign challenging is to spread yourself too thin and take on all evil nations at once. Try and be a saviour of Middle-earth and attack them all straight out of the gate. Take down Dunland, Misty Mountains, Angmar. Press on to Isengard. But it's an easy campaign. Anyway, so those are your neighbours, and those are the people you start allied and at war with. So in terms of economy then, well, the major change from version 1, 1.5, whatever it was called, and 1.2, whatever the names of the last ones were, 0.5 and 1.2, the elves now can upgrade castles. We kind of have gone with the basic premise, we kind of have gone with the idea that the elves are so powerful that giving fake restrictions on their castle building is just not worth it. So you can now get castles. Now do note that the battle map for the castles is not custom. Or rather, well, it is, but it isn't. It uses the Elven City battle map. So it won't be an actual castle on the battle map. And so in terms of defending, for you, defending an actual battle, a castle or a town makes no difference. However, castles still are more military focused, so as an elven nation, taking castles is still a priority if you don't yet have a recruitment centre, as I like to think of it. But you can now upgrade all your castles. Other than that, you have, and with that, sorry, you have no restrictions. So you get what's called a history guild, which gives you experience bonus to troops and a population bonus, experience bonus to all types of troops. Construction art you also get, which gives you, as you can see, this is an AI building that we've adapted so that humans can actually use it, but it's very costly and it takes a lot of time to build. And that's because primarily the people that made Third Age Total War added this for the AI. As a way for the AI to stimulate growth and to give them a building in the late game that boosts them. And for a long time, this had no benefit if you were playing as a human player. But we added benefits in and we made it more costly. So as you can see, it just reduces the cost of buildings, gives you a population bonus, and gives you money, which is all very nice. Although the building cost reduction will actually be removed from this, so don't think too heavily on that. We're going to remove the building costs. I'll have to write that down at the end or I'll forget that. Because you also, of course, get the Master Builders. A Builder's Hall, a Master Builder's Hall, and a Builder's Guild House, which reduces your costs the same as every other nation. So the construction art reducing your cost by 2 and 3% is utterly useless, given that they don't add together. So the Master Builder will always surpass the construction art. So don't build this trying to think you'll get a 3% boost, because you won't. You also get the Warriors Guild, which upgrades your melee weapons, and then again, more experience. And if you can get up to the Noldarine Bladesmiths Guild, as you can see, it actually upgrades to Celebrimborian Plate, wherever it's located. But remember, you can only have one of these on the entire world map. And by that, I mean only one nation can get this third tier. And you'll be beaten to it. You will not get this. So even though it has very nice little boosts, you won't be able to use them. In terms of smiths, you're one of the few nations that gets all the way up to the top. You don't get the very, very top smith unless you take Ost-in Ethil. So in Ost-in Ethil, you can get an extra tier of smithing called Celebrimborian Plate, which upgrades even your elite units. So I was explaining how the blacksmiths work, that every unit's armor stat is added into it and is applied to a very arbitrary distinction. So 0 to 3, for example, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, whatever. But the elves, of course, have very high armor stats. Way, way up there. So the armor is 18. They're already in the highest category. But because, to reference the fact that Celebrimbor is meant to be one of the greatest smiths that ever lived, and his legacy lives on in the Noldarine of Imladris, if you take Ost-in Ethil, you actually do get Celebrimborian Plate from the Gwaith Imerdine, the special smith building that is in Ost-in Ethil. And so you can upgrade your Eldarinways and indeed even your bodyguards upgrade in Ost-in Ethil. So that's a very cool little addition. And you will note, as I've just shown you from the Construction Guild, that you also get that Celebrimborian Plate if you can get the third tier of the Warriors Guild. Otherwise, though, you just get the 5 tiers of your smith, giving you partial leather, full leather, elven mail, elven plate, and Noldarine Plate. Another building, of course, as we cover the buildings, you don't have any scripts. Well, you have one script. I'll talk about that in a moment, but we'll deal with the kind of building-y side first. So there's only 2 real aspects of the game for the elves, and that number 1 is the Dunedain encampment. You can train this in only certain places. So obviously, Imladris is one such place. You've seen it in the queue already. And it just gives you a couple of early game, almost trash. I mean, they're not really trash, but it gives you a couple of early game units to help pad out the fact that the elven recruitment is severely delayed. For example, we are in our capital city, and the Sword Questy here are good to go. I've trained them, and it'll be 17 turns until I can get the next one. Obviously, when the barracks event hits and you upgrade all of your military production buildings, that number does come down. And I've seen people moan about this non-stop, but it is A, lore accurate, and B, a very, very successful way of limiting the power of the elves in terms of the AI. You will have small armies when you play as Imladris. You have to deal with that. Don't come to us and moan that we've broken the game because it takes me 15 turns to recruit another unit, and this is just my militia. It's like, yes, it is, but your Sword Quendi are the best militia in the game, and they will eat even mid-tier units around them for breakfast. So stop whining and just learn how to play with small armies, for Christ's sake. Apologies, that's one of my biggest bugbears. Do note that the Dunedain encampment, as I've already mentioned, is only available in very few locations, and almost all of them are in Eriador. So once you break free into Ravanian and down into Gondor and Rohan, you will lose the Dunedain. They are no longer really available. So they're very small, and it's just a nice little addition showing the relationship between Imladris and the Dunedain. Almost symbiosis, really, isn't it? The final thing in terms of buildings then is Ostin Ethiel. The Gwaith y Myrdain building is no longer a guild, which means you don't have to build certain buildings in order to get it. You no longer have to build a ton of blacksmiths. It is now just a standard building, but it does have very high requirements. I wonder if I switch to the castle tab if I can show you it. Temple C art. That's a bug. No, I can't, unfortunately. Oh, of course, because I've set it to only be available in Ostin Ethiel, so it only shows up in Ostin Ethiel. But anyway, it has very high requirements. You need a highest level of town hall, you need the highest level of blacksmith, and I believe you need the highest level of the barracks before you can upgrade the Gwaith y Myrdain. But of course it comes with, as I say, the highest armour stat that you can get, and only one tier below the dwarves who do hold out the highest armour, in the highest blacksmithing level. And it gives you, of course, the Smiths of Eregion. As you'll see in the second half, they're one of the game's best units. So it is really quite worth it. It also gives you money as well, which is nice to say. It's always nice to get money for stuff. So then the only script that actually affects Imladris, well, other than, of course, the garrison script, and there's your armory, it reduces your money, but if you build this anywhere, you will get a garrison in the location that you have built it. And it has an upgrade to a militia armory. Which requires a Hall of Culture, actually, which is the name of your town hall, if you're interested. You've got Hall of Song, Hall of Music, Hall of Culture, and the Valiant Council Hall. Right, so then the only real script is, of course, Glorfindel. Lord Glorfindel, the saviour of the refugees of Gondolin. And, of course, the saviour of Frodo later on in the Third Age, and one of the finest characters in the entire Legendarium. He joins you. It used to be about turn 40. It is now, I believe, a bit later than that. Possibly around the barracks event. Because he does spawn with cavalry. Again, we've taken the kind of view that Imladris is so simple, so easy, it's never going to be a challenge. We might as well just throw more layers on this cake and make it easier. Glorfindel, of course, is famously horsed. Asvaloth, his horse, is one of the finest horses in Middle-earth, said to be very, very fast and a very noble horse. Indeed, Asvaloth actually carries Frodo on his own back to Imladris, riding against the Black Riders. And it is said that Glorfindel is one of the few elves who can actually outrun the Nazgul. And so he does, of course, come with a mounted bodyguard, but it is Eldarinway Lancers, which means that he can single-handedly wipe out over 2,000 units in any given battle if you use him that way. If you want to make Imladris difficult, I suggest you don't commit Glorfindel to action. Have him lead your army by all means, but keep him standing at the back, because he really will massacre anything once he arrives. And it is a little unfair, really. And I hear you now crying, well, Galu, if you're going to make Imladris so simple, why not give these guys back their mounted bodyguard? And because there is still a level. If all three of these had their old mounted archer bodyguard, the campaign loses all even attempts at being strategic. And you can literally just group these three together and win the game. You never need to add troops to them. You never need to do anything. They beat every army they ever fight. And that was a little extreme. Now, I appreciate Glorfindel does the same, but he doesn't come in for about 60 turns. So you have at least a modicum of challenge in the early game. Of course, you don't, because as you'll see in a moment, the Noldorin Guard are OP. Hella OP, to coin the young person's phrases. So major map changes in Imladris, of course, north of you, Dol Bryn and Camath Bryn. This used to all be one region, it's now split into two. To the south, Holland has been added to the town of Anon en Orod, which means Gate of the Mountain, if you're interested. That town has been added down there. Of course, the Khazar-Dums have been split east and west since 0.5. Change was made a long time ago, but some people might not know that that's a thing. Tirthuin and Ostsul, of course, have been broken up, and if you get the pleasure of fighting in the village of Ostsul, it will be the battle map of Amun-Sul, and if you fight at the fort of Amun-Sul, of course, it will be Amun-Sul. Simple as that. So those are the only real major map changes. So tips and difficulty then. I'm not going to give any. The campaign is an absolute doddle. Train your units, make sure you use your generals, and win the game. It really is that easy. If you're struggling as Imladris, then play as Linden. And if you're struggling as Linden, then maybe computer gaming isn't for you. I don't mean that in a very harsh way, but I genuinely, I really think Imladris are an absolute cakewalk. Alright, you might take a little while to reach Mordor, and so you might be fighting stack after stack. But grind and boredom are two very different things when compared with difficulty. So whilst you may feel like you are totally outmatched and outnumbered, you will win heroic victory after heroic victory after heroic victory. You'll win against the orcs. You can win losing like 100 elves when you've got, say, 2,000 elves in your army, or less than that. You could have 500 elves in your army. You could lose 100 of them, and you could kill over 2,000 orcs. It is very simple when you know what to do. And you don't even need to know what to do. Your units will do it for you, as we'll see in just a minute. So that is tips I can give for Imladris. So, the only thing I keep forgetting to say, your victory conditions as Imladris are to hold 20 regions, so not that many. But it does include Barad-dûr, Isengard, Goblin Town, and you do need to defeat Mordor, Isengard, and the Misty Mountains. Now, you don't need to defeat Angmar, and you don't need to defeat Dunland. But Imladris are kind of seen as a sort of counterpart to the Dunedain. Your goal, before the elves can truly depart to Aman, is to eradicate Sauron. So the only reason you've stayed behind is because you will not rest until he finally falls. Elrond was culpable, I suggest, for not killing Isildur and throwing the ring into Mount Doom, which I think the world would have thanked him for. But because he's a selfish bugger, and he didn't do that, you have to now defeat Mordor. Although, of course, that whilst Elrond was present at the Battle of Mount Doom, on the slopes of Mount Doom, I believe it was called the Siege of Barad-dûr, actually, is the name of the battle. There is no real suggestion that he and Isildur marched all the way up to the Crack of Doom and then had a little chat and then came back again. I'm fairly certain that was added for the film to add some tension and to show Isildur as the bad guy. Whereas really, I think they won the battle. They had no real idea what they needed to do with the ring, and they buggered off. So we can't really hold Elrond to blame, but I'm going to anyway. Anywho, so I shall head over to the battle map and we'll have a look at Imladris' roster. Welcome then to the battle map. So a quick overview of Imladris will show you that you have actually got a wide selection of units. No, wrong words. You've got units that cover all aspects of the game, but you don't have a wide selection. So your roster is actually relatively small, but you do have units in all three lines. The only thing you don't have is javelin troops. So a very well-rounded nation, but with a very strong focus. As you can see, this gap here is the barracks event. Very strong focus on late game. Also, do note that I've included, because we can with them now, just because the roster is so small, there are 2 units of Noldorin Guard and 2 units of these archers, just so I can show you what their upgraded version looks like. So the roster is actually 2 smaller than that. But we start at the beginning with your militia, in inverted commas, because Sword Quendi are not militia. They are your militia, but by Jove are they not real militia. 8 attack, 4 charge, 16 defense. Now they do cost 860 for the pleasure. But this is your entry level unit. This is as good as the Gondorian mainline battle ready warriors that you all recognise from the films with their plate mail. Gondorian swordmen they're called. These are as good as them, and this is your entry level unit, and that's Gondor's late game battle line unit. to give you an idea. Now, all elves as well have very good morale, or at least good morale, sorry. Good morale response, and your stamina's normally excellent, which means you're going to fight on for a long time. You're supplemented at the beginning as well with bow, Gwendy. One of the few units that actually has men and women in the armies, because the elves don't discriminate on who fires arrows into orcs' heads. Bow Quendi. Very similar to the sword Quendi. Their melee is a little worse, their defense is a little worse, but they get a 6 missile attack. Of course, it goes without saying that Imladris are an archer nation at heart, and indeed you get 4 archer units, although your bodyguard isn't an archer. But so your archer units do as much missile damage as most human nations' best archers, and these are your entry-level archers. Not only that, but I have specifically created it so that elves have higher accuracy at every tier than anyone else. So if you had 3 units that all had average accuracy, and it was an orc, a human, and an elf, the elf is actually the most accurate, even though they're only average. The human is the middle, and the orcs are the worst. So whilst that is average accuracy, that is actually as good accuracy on a human unit. So your lowest tier archer unit will do tons of damage if you can use them well and get them to shoot and kill the enemy. They will do that. Now, as I have mentioned, this roster is going to look like these people are unstoppable, and how on earth is this faction balanced? And of course it is balanced in that, number one, this unit, well, they're the mercenaries, so it doesn't show you, but this unit costs 860 gold coins, has an upkeep that is fairly substantial for a welcoming unit or a first tier unit, and it's 17 turns before you can train another one. And let's not forget that elves get worse recruitment in certain regions than other regions. The Noldarine actually, we've taken away the debuff that they used to get in mountains, because the Noldarine actually favour mountains. So I'm fairly certain actually now that there is you only get debuffs in the desert region, so you should actually have recruitment fixed across the board. So that at least counters some of the bad problems. Imladris, mountain, recruit, and construction art. Sorry, I've done something that's absolutely appalling, and I've written something in a book while I'm recording. Anyway, so on to the next unit that you get before the barracks event, although they really are Tolkus' Faithful. If you're not sure who Tolkus is, he's kind of the closest thing that the Valar that they have to Ares, I would suggest. He is the physically strongest of all of the Valar, and they take his name in honour of that. And they're beasts. They can hide anywhere. They get a bonus against armour, excellent stamina, 8 charge, 14 attack, 18 defence. Very good morale response. They are one of the best strike infantry the game has. They can ambush, they do damage against armour, they already have a 14 base attack before that. They are murderers. They're just absolutely so OP, it's not even fair. So definitely try and supplement your roster with them. But of course, the early game, your army is going to be made up of mostly Sword Quendi holding the line, 1 or 2 Tolkus' Faithful, because again, they're bloody costly, 1 or 2 of them flanking on the sides, and as many Bow Quendi as you can trying to actually do the death. Keeping the enemy at range is Imladris' best way of cutting their losses. And then, of course, at this tier, you get the Imladris Riders. Now, the Imladris, or Rangers, sorry, the Riders were cut from the game. Rangers, I'm fairly certain, are only available from Imladris, so they're very rare. They cost 1,200 for their damage. At high accuracy, 140 meter range, 30 missiles. Their missile attack damage is 8. Their melee is 9, and their total defense is 18. They can form a shooting circle, excellent stamina. They are absolutely beastly, and when you upgrade their armor, they look like the Imladris pikemen, which is very nice. They upgrade to look like the Hobbit movie Imladris guards. They are one of the best horse archers in the game. They are excellent cavalry once they finish with their arrows. They're not in horde mode either, so their charge is actually quite effective. They are beasts, and again, train them as often as you can. The 2 units you want to try and train every time they come up are Tolkus' Faithful and Imladris Rangers. 2 of your best units, hands down. But then the barracks event will kick in, and you'll come to what is a new unit, or replace the Imladris Riders, and they are the Nanatar. They're just standard sword and board that are very good. They're a direct upgrade on your sword Quendi. So 24 defense, 13 attack. I can't even say be careful because most of that's in armor, because that's not true. They have roughly the same armor and defense skill. Well, it's 2/3 of their armor is their defense skill, but that's high enough that you're not going to be too worried if they go up against armor piercing, because their defense skill will make up for it. And they're just really good sword and board units, as you've seen. 13 attack, 6 charge, 24 defense. Even better morale, as you'll see. Better morale response. They get a bonus against most horses, which is a trait that many of the elves share. They get a bonus against most cavalry just because fighting expertise, let's call it that. And also because you don't get... no, it's fighting expertise. At this tier as well, you also get the Noreterno warriors. Noreterno. These are all Quenya words, and I don't know any Quenya whatsoever, so I couldn't tell you what any of this means. And there isn't a link, like it's not like Latin, like where French and Italian have a lot of base root words, or French and Spanish, or any of the Latinized languages. They all have fairly common root words. You can kind of tell, oh, that word's the same as that word. It's not the same in Sindarin and Quenyan. Noreterno in Sindarin could be something completely different. Anyway, Noreterno warriors, 9 missile attack, 9 melee attack, 19 defense. These guys are supposed to actually be half and half. They're one of the few archer units that is designed to also be a defensive sword unit. There is no inherent weakness in archers. So, like, for example, with the pikes, they have the OP pike animation supplementing their attack. There's nothing like that for archers. So archers aren't weaker than melee units because they're archers. They're weaker than melee units because we make their stats weaker than melee units. Whereas the Noreterno warriors are actually as good as melee units. And they are they used to be your mainstream sword and board and archer until the Nanatar were added. So Noreterno are just very, very good. But again, the recruitment cost is outrageous at this kind of level, and it can cost an awful lot just to keep this army going. They also get now a dedicated cavalry unit that it doesn't have a bow or a dedicated melee cavalry, are your Noreterno cavalry. 7 attack, charge of 11, defense of 17, but you don't have a secondary attack though, so they are charge cavalry, they're not sustained cavalry. Now, no cavalry is sustained cavalry, of course, but some cavalry does it better than others. Not all cavalry is created equal. Right, then you come to your elites. Imladris' most iconic unit, everybody knows who these are. These are your Eldarinwe. We'll start with the cavalry, because why not? Even though we never do, but we will. This is the unit, as I say, that Glorfindel comes with. And yes, Imladris has the bronze colour. The silver colouring is spared only for their elites and mostly for Linden. Linden's Eldarinwe are a light blue, silvery colour. And yours keep the view of the films in that they are bronze. And they're just really good. 12 attack, 15 charge, 30 defense. I mean, that's outrageous, isn't it? That's absolutely outrageous. Yes, they are up there as one of the best cavalry units in the game. I still stand by, though, that the Lokian Asurim, Arthedain Royals and Swan Knights are better, purely because they're more readily available and they don't cost as much. 1,800 gold coins, and you don't even want to know what their upkeep is. I mean, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can tell you... from having set most of the upkeep some time ago, although Imladris may have been tweaked since then, but it used to be bloody high. They're just really good cavalry. Charge them in, the enemy will die. Run away, charge them in again, the enemy will die. If they get caught in melee, their attack is high enough to negate the fact that they have a larger hitbox than an infantry unit, and they will kill lots of things once they're in as well. Now, they're supported on the ground with a spear unit, uninterestingly called Eldarinwe Spearmen. Do note that the presence of the diaresis does not denote a different sound. It just denotes that this E is pronounced on its own. Although that makes no odds in Eldarinwe because there's no other vowel there. But that's normally what it means. For example, in the name Earendil, the diaresis above the E makes the E a unique and definitive sound. Or definite sound. The E and the A don't smudge together. And it's the same here. It isn't an umlaut, it's a diaresis. Meaning that it doesn't change the way E is pronounced, it just makes E pronounced on its own. Anyway, I'm digressing, and no one likes language really. Very few of you like language, sorry. So you're not all that interested. Anyway, Spearmen. Shield wall, excellent stamina, 14 attack, 8 charge, 33 defense. Insane defense. Also, their morale is locked. They will not run away unless you tell them to. Which does mean if you're in a situation where you're starting to lose the battle and you want them to run away, they won't. They will fight to the death. And if you can't run them away because you're at the end of your movement points, they'll just die. So it can be a negative as well as it can be a boon. What's the opposite of a boon? In Guild Wars, it's a condition. That's not what I'm after. I suppose it kind of works. Right, they're also supported by the Swordmen. Now, Swordmen don't have a shield, so they aren't really that great at dedicated mainline fighting. Now, they are good at that because they're Noldorin, Eldarin way Swordmen. They will kill anything. But archers, if they had a weakness, it is archers because they don't have a shield, and 10 of their 26 defense is made up of defense skills. Sorry. Now, they cost 1,400, 19 attack, 10 charge. Excellent morale. Interestingly, they aren't locked. I imagine they actually are, and it's written on the wrong one. Sorry about that. So they are locked, and they won't run away either. The stats speak for themselves. They're just incredible units. If you can get them out, they will do so much damage. On their own, they are monsters. And they're supported finally by the Eldarin Way archers. 13 melee, 11 missile, 25 total defense, but again, no shield. They do not use a shield when they swap to melee. Now, again, they are they are very, very good melee infantry with a 25 defense and 13 melee attack. They'll just laugh most things off. Excellent and locked morale again. Very high accuracy, 210 meter range, 32 missiles. They will, they are in the category that is one down from the best archer category. The Hin Idaur of the Thranduil's realm has the longest range, most missiles, and highest accuracy of any archer unit. So in terms of archers' stats, not damage, the Hin Idaur is the best, but their missile attack of 11 is up there as the highest missile attack of any archer with the Hin Idaur. Although I think the Hin Idaur might have 12 just to give them that edge and make them the best archer unit in the game. Because we wanted to make them a little unique. And Imladris already have tons of good units, as you'll now see as we come to the Uber tier. There are 3 units at this Uber tier, but only 2 of them are trainable. This one is not. So we'll start with these 2. A very iconic unit, first of all, the Smiths of Eregion. Everyone knows who these are. They're monsters. They're effective against armor. They inspire your troops. They can hide well. Excellent stamina. 18 attack. 8 charge. Excellent and locked morale. They only come from Eregion, but that's right, friends. They have a 42 total defense. I am happy to go on record and say that I think that is the highest defense stat of any non-troll or monster infantry unit. They are solid contenders for the game's best unit, and they will massacre you. I will massacre you! Name that film. I haven't included the Mithlon nobles in the Imladris overview because they're very much a Linden unit. Imladris will barely ever get to train them. You have to backstab your own ally or buy their provinces from them in order to get Mithlon nobles. So they'll be in the Linden overview. But you do also get Mithlon nobles at this tier if you have Mithlond, but you probably never will. So that's why I didn't include them. But just to shut down the haters first. So those are the Smiths. Now they cost 1,700 and their upkeep again is probably in the region of 1,000 gold coins. So that you really do have to pay for the privilege of getting them. And to actually even get them, you need the Gwaith Myrdain, and it costs a hell of a lot of money. It has a lot of requirements. It takes a long time to build. They're an incredibly late game unit, to go with the fact that they're an Uber unit. You also get, of course, the Imladris Guards. They're just a very dedicated pike unit, one of the best pike units in the game. But they only, again, come from Imladris. So your 2 Ubers are restricted to regions. A lot of your units are restricted to certain regions only. But the guards are just excellent pikemen. Cost a lot for it. 27 defense, 9 attack. Remember that I said to triple a pike unit's attack, and that's roughly about where its stats will actually be. That stays true even for the guards. So that is right, friends. It is the best way to think of how much damage they'll do when factoring in their animation, is that they probably have an attack stat of around 27. They really are so overpowered. And they're available, I'm pretty sure, before the barracks event. Really, really rare. You'll get 1 unit of them, but I'm pretty sure you can train them before the barracks event, because they come from one of the unique buildings, not from the barracks. Anyway, finally then, the 2 bodyguard units. We'll start with the Noldorin Guard, and as promised, this is what they look like at the start of the game. Although I think Elrond's unit might actually have this upgraded one. But this is what they look like normally for the twins.
I will protect the lands of Rivendell.
And they seem very intent on protecting the lands of Rivendell. And then they upgrade to look like this.
I will be your guide. This is the way.
They, as you can tell, can hide anywhere because they're doing it at the moment. And they do have a shield when they engage in melee, but 19 melee attack, 12 missile attack. I think that actually is the highest missile attack of any unit, which people always are fond of telling me when I cover the Hin Idaur in the Thranduil's Realm video, which I haven't done yet, I don't think. Their defense is 37, so not quite as good as the Smiths, but damn fine anyway. They frighten enemy infantry, they inspire your troops, they can hide anywhere. They're reliable in woods and deserts. They have no terrain malices. They have unwavering morale, and it's locked. Their armor class is listed as ultra heavy. Of 19 armor. Exceptional accuracy, 235 meter range, and 38 missiles make them Imladris' finest. The Emperor's finest. Well, High King, Lawmaster. And then finally your bodyguard, in Elder Rinway Nobles. They are exactly the same as they used to be, they just don't have a horse anymore. So they're just sword and board. 17 attack, 7 charge, 32 defense. They aren't your best unit, not by a long way. And there are very few of them, so they're still incredible. In the early game, they will be one of your best units, and their stats obviously match up to roughly Elder Rinway stats in the later game. Similar sort of stats as the Elder Rinway there. Excuse me, sorry. And finally, I just wanted to show you what your Ballaster crew looks like, because they're elves. So there we are, soak up the elveny goodness. And that is it. That is the Imladris roster. So let's group everything up, give them over to the AI, and start the battle. Now, two things to say. First, we shall play another game of Guess Who We're Up Against. Oh, my keys aren't turning me around as much as I want them to. Right, we're going to go left. Guess who we are up against. You may have seen the colour of the border. There seems to be a wide variety in their roster there. It looks like there might be some larger units at the front. There are some cavalry units. I'm S-ing too much. Sissing. So, who do you think that might be over yonder? Now, the final thing to say about Imladris is stun locking. Medieval 2 features animations akin to being stunned. So when a unit gets attacked, it will take a knock and it will bowl backwards, for example. It will stumble and it'll not attack back immediately. So there's a stun animation. It's to give the game a more alive feel, as though the units are actually taking hits and the physics of that hit is knocking them back. But unfortunately, stun locking is a feature whereby a unit can be attacked by so many units at once that it is just perpetually stunned and it never fights back until it dies. And it is something to look out for when you play as Imladris, because they have very small unit sizes. So the actual battalions themselves are very small in number. Which means that it's very easy to get completely surrounded and for a battalion to be totally separated. And it is not then unheard of for a unit of, for example, Noldorin Guard, one of the game's finest units, to be brought down by hordes of Snaga or militia purely because they attack they get something like 6 enemy units per 1 Noldorin Guard man or elf, meaning that they're just forever stunned and they never fight back. And so even though you will normally beat an army that outmatches you and is much larger than you, do watch out for individual units getting surrounded, cut off, and getting massacred. Because it can happen. And as you might well now have guessed, seeing the Ologhai charge in at the front there, we are going to cover Mordor next week. And there's their roster of very much just black colouring all over the place. Ah, the bronze might of the Elder Rinway pressing in against the orcs. Oh, the Nanatar are in there as well. To be honest, this is one of the few fights where I think if I actually just leave it and let it go on, I think the elves would win. Even though it's AI versus AI, I think the elves would take it. There's the Temple Knights, Dark Numenorians still in service of Sauron. Troll catapults firing away at the back there. Oh, especially if they kill their own troops. Temple Knights charging down there. The Ologhai doing well, though. They've killed whatever we had over there. I don't really know. Oh, the Smiths of Eregion! No! And as promised, those Sauron's Will have taken down those Noldorin Guard. So even a unit like the Noldorin Guard, one of the best units in the game, can still get massacred by what is a very standard elite unit. The Sauron's Will, and by no way uber units, but it's possible. And it can be done with numbers, and you've got to watch out for it. I don't think there's anything more to say on Imladris, and I don't think we need to linger any longer. And I'm going out in 15 minutes, so I'm going to call it there. So I do hope you've learned something in this one. I hope you also enjoy playing. I mean, I enjoy playing as Imladris, and I hope you do too. But the fact that your units do train slowly, and most battles are really quite against the nose, you will be outnumbered all the time. And it can be a real struggle for dealing with your finances. But it is good fun. It is good fun. There is something about being this overpowered and just watching your units kill everything that draws people in. But anyway, that will be all. And until we speak again, dear friends, Navarne den Perimad Melonin, and farewell. Oh, there aren't any Imladris riders anymore. They were cut out of the game. Bye!